Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the Last Round Boxing Podcast. Thank you again for joining us. Jumping straight back into it this past Saturday, the 6th of December, from Monte Carlo in Monaco on DAZN. Shabaz Masoud, hope I said that right, remains undefeated at 15-0 with the unanimous decision win over 12 rounds against Peter McGrail, who takes the second loss of his career. This was for the EBU European Super Bantamweight title. What did you think about the main event on this card, Mike?
I thought it was a good contested matchup. I thought Masoud probably won it by like a round or two. Good matchup though between the two guys. Masoud, very, very eye-catching fighter, very slick. You know, kind of like you come in, takes a back step, catches you as you're coming in. Good style of fight. Peter McGrail just kind of like worked hard, but I thought he just kept getting caught. I thought he was like too one-dimensional. You know, didn't really move onto something else when certain things weren't working for him. Good thing for Masoud though. I think he's going to move on to something bigger and better later down the line. So it'll be interesting to see where they move him from here because he hasn't really had too much traction from a promoter. He's kind of done everything the hard way. I think. Promoters have probably thought that, we have a better... They probably thought McGrail was going to be the bigger star than he was, probably going into this, especially with McGrail being an Olympian. A lot of the guys who turned over haven't really done that well in this batch, really. Used to be a big thing for the UK fighters, like Joshua Khan or De Harrison, like the dudes that did well in the Olympics normally would turn pro with, some type of fanfare and then would do okay. Obviously, take Audley Harrison out of that part because obviously he did terribly as a professional. But people like your Amir Khan. So this last batch haven't done great, and probably the batch before, unfortunately for us Brits. But I thought it was a good fight, closely contested. But Masoud, I think, probably nicked it for me. I think the right guy won.
Is Olympic boxing in the UK? Great Britain and that whole area. Is it still? Because I feel like it's just me guessing. I feel like younger fighters or kids have more aspirations in the UK towards the Olympics than they do in the United States. Is that, from what you know, is that true? Or if you had to guess?
It's kind of hard for me to judge now. We're living over here in California, but when a lot of it used to be on terrestrial TV, like the BBC, ITV, they got into like millions and millions of homes. So that's why like your De Harrison, your Amir Khans was such big stars, when they turned professional. I'm not too sure now whether it's all still on free TV. I'd like to think it was, or whether it's, behind a paywall like Sky Sports or BT or TNT as it's now called. But yeah, it used to be, those guys would turn, whether it was a boxer, a runner, whatever, they used to be, big stars as soon as they came out of the Olympics. But, our last couple of batches haven't been too good. And, with probably the biggest name of the minute is probably Ben Whittaker, who recently signed with Matchroom. And, so far, like he seems to have got the stardom, but, does he have the skills in the ring? Where so far we don't know.
So is Masoud, is he a Matchroom fighter?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He is, right? So where exactly is he from?
He is from...
Is he Saudi?
No, he's English. He's from Stoke.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm assuming, obviously, his family must be somewhere Middle Eastern.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, is his background... He's English, but I wonder if his background... Because I'm thinking, like, with Turki Al-Sheikh, if he does have obviously it seems like he has a Middle Eastern background, but if he is of Saudi descent, I would think Turki Al-Sheikh and that entire team behind him would be interested in, like, hey, let's put this guy on the Riyadh season cards and all those, I mean, you would think, just because it's like fellow countrymen in a sense. Peter McGrail, how do you think his career is going to end up by the end? If you had to just speculate.
I was never fully sold on him. I thought he still had that kind of upright, slightly stiff, great British amateur style that they tend to teach. And obviously he turned pro like later. He's 29 now. Masoud is also 29. He had a loss early, in 2023 when he was knocked out by Jericho Quinn. After dominating the fight, but kind of like got a little bit lackadaisical, got caught, got knocked out in the fifth over in, that was actually in Glendale, Arizona. So it's good. I don't think he's going to reach the stars. I don't think he's going to be that. I think, he's probably going to be British, European level, but I don't see him being, a world champion, unfortunately. And, super bantamweight is pretty stacked. So I don't think he's going to become maybe what Matchroom thought he was going to become.
Well, I mean, at 29, he's still got some years to work with. So, he could surprise people. But is there anybody you can think of in the past, in the history of boxing, maybe in the last 10, 15 years or something, who found their stride, like in their late 20s like that, maybe early 30s? Like they were fighting for years already, and then they found like the prime of their career, like at 30 or 31 or 29, 30 or 32, like, and then they got a couple good years out of it, like at the top of the boxing game.
Someone that springs to mind, and it wasn't like world level, but I remember, I think it was Derry Matthews, a British fighter from Liverpool. It looked like he was he'd reached that point where it's like, okay, now you become like a gatekeeper. But he strung like a load of like wins together, and then just started took off again and like did pretty well. What's his name? Remember Tommy Coyle?
Yeah.
He got that, and he ended up getting a world title shot against. Was it Chris Algieri?
I think we talked about that fight in a past episode.
Yeah, it was during our podcast years. But I remember he did that. He changed trainer, and then he fell back in love with the sport, ended up putting a string of wins together, and then he fought, I'm sure it was Chris Algieri or somebody, lost quite convincingly, if I remember rightly. But it kind of fits the question that you asked.
Yeah. Because it is interesting, and that could happen like in any sport, not even just sports, but in life, especially whether it's a job or just in general. But specifically focusing on sports, like there's players, athletes, fighters who fight for years, turn pro at 18 here, at least here in the United States, and they fight 10, 12 years, 13 years, and they're doing okay, but it's just like, not really going to be anything special. And then from one fight forward, from like 30 years old until like 35, they're like at the top of the pound for pound or top of the rankings. And it's like, took them 12 years. They're just late bloomers, I guess. It's just, I mean, it does happen. It's always cool to see, though. It's just like, man, like, it's like these, like Jorge Linares. Yeah. Linares lost a lot at the beginning, and I feel like he didn't really hit his prime until later on in his career, where he started having big fights and got some decent big wins under his belt. Linares, because I was trying to think of somebody at least over here in the United States, especially out here in California. I just remember Linares because I was thinking, okay, Golden Boy out here in LA, top rank. So Linares popped into my head. And also in a way, I wouldn't say. What do you think about Nonito Donaire, where he obviously had like a peak of success, and then he kind of slowed down. But then when he went back down in weight, and then when he had like the bouts with the Monster Inoue, he kind of found like a second wind because he was, he found some success there. So that was interesting to see as well.
Got one.
Who?
Sergio
Martinez. That's true. Yeah. The Paul Williams fight is what really turned him around.
And he was later, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. Sergio Martinez, when he knocked out Paul Williams, and Paul Williams, like that knockout, that's one of the most like brutal knockouts I've ever seen in terms of, because I remember the camera zoomed in on Paul Williams' like face, and he was laying on his stomach with his head to the side, and like he was not moving. He was not moving at all. And they were both like, it was like mid. They were both throwing a punch at the same time, and I think Martinez just beat him to the punch. Well, I think it was like an overhand right. That was, yeah. Because Martinez was what at that time? How old was he?
So he lost a majority decision to Paul Williams, then fought Kelly Pavlik, beat him,
yeah,
and then fought Paul Williams again and knocked him out in 2010. So,
yeah. Because he was what? He
doesn't have their date of birth on.
Sergio Martinez has been on the show. We had him on maybe 5 years ago. I'm assuming he was at least in his 30s.
2010.
Right? Maybe early 30s? Or... No, I would say
1975. So he's 35.
He was 35 when he knocked out Paul Williams?
According to this year, February the 21st, 1975.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. So he's like 50 right now, give or take. Yeah, because he ended up, Martinez, after that knockout of Paul Williams, the next,
He went on a crazy
5 to 7 years. He fought Cotto. He fought Chavez Jr.
Yeah.
He had a pretty good run of, getting some pretty big fights.
Darren Barker, Matthew Macklin for our Brits, Chavez, Martin Murray, Cotto, Brian Rose. Yeah. Then he retired.
He was 35. That just goes to show you like how 35 years old.
Lost to Cotto, retired for 6 years, came back in 2020.
I remember we talked about that. Yeah, he was on the show.
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah, he was on the show.
In 2020, so he was 45.
And I think on our interview with him, he mentioned Chavez Jr. again. He was talking about like coming back to try to get Chavez Jr. in a rematch or something like that. Or I think it was Chavez.
That was Chavez's first loss. He was 46-0.
And if you remember in that 12th round, Chavez knocked him down and like could have won that fight. But Martinez, outlasted him. But yeah, that's true. 35 years old, man. 35 years old, and then that's nuts. That is nuts. Going back to this card in the co-main, Alif Nur Turhan remains undefeated as well at 12-0 with the 5th round TKO over Beatriz Ferreira, who takes the first loss.
That was a good, best female fight I've seen. That.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
This is for the IBF Lightweight World Championship. Okay, that's a pretty big statement. I don't think you've ever said. Well, I'm sure you've said that about female fights in the past, but now that you say it again, You said the best female fight you've ever seen. Why?
Because we got knockdowns and a knockout. Most female fights, especially for world titles, you very rarely get a knockdown. Never get a knockout. Obviously, the last one I can think of was Alicia Baumgardner against Terry Harper.
Yes.
But she knocked her out pretty much standing up and the referee jumped in. But, you know, it wasn't the best as in terms of technique, because if you looked at the Turkish lady, if you looked at her style, she was like throwing like windmills, but it was effective because Beatriz Ferreira was such an amateur pedigree that she wasn't used to it. And she was just kind of like, oh my God, what the hell is going on? Like these punches are just coming from all over. But every time she connected, she would like pretty much drop her. And I think Beatriz Ferreira was so kind of short and stocky and strong that most of the time that she's ever fought, I think that she's been the bigger, stronger opponent, where this girl was taller than her. Her punches were obviously very, very, very hard because she hurt her pretty much every time she connected. And there was just the drama of that because she was kind of the underdog, the unknown coming in, fighting a very, very good amateur, knocks her down early, and then you kind of like, oh my God, what the hell's going on here? It's unusual to get a knockdown in a female fight, and especially with two world champions, well, a world champion and then obviously now the new world champion, or, you know, two people at a very high level. So yeah, just the drama of it and actually getting a knockout where the referee has to come in and stop the fight. So that's probably
wild.
Yeah, very good fight, because if you think of all the big ones, Lester Shields never stops anybody.
Right.
Neither does Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, unless they're facing someone so much worse than them in terms of, you know, skill. All of the big fights go the distance. So it was a pleasure to see. They're actually, you know, you got 3 knockdowns and a knockout. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Best female fight I think I've seen in terms of that. You know, the Katie Taylor fights and the Serrano fights were good, but there was never a knockdown. Never did you think like, oh my God, Taylor's going to knock her out. It was just throwing tons of punches every round.
Also on the card, Kona Walker. Is that a typo? Is it Connor or is it Kona?
Kona Walker, yeah.
Kona Walker. I guess a knockout decision in the 12th and final round against Pat McCormack. Is it McCormack or McCormack? McCormack, who takes the first loss of his career. This was for the vacant IBF Intercontinental Welterweight Championship. Had a couple IBF championships on the line here, EBU. What do you think about this fight?
I thought it was
talking about Walker before.
Yeah, if you look at Conor Walker, he's kind of like what you were talking about, where he's getting to the later stages of his career, but he's managed to, you know, like turn it around after having some previous defeats to Lewis Crocker, who some people said that he should have won that fight. So after winning the IBF Intercontinental, that now makes him back in the top 15, and currently Lewis Crocker seems to hold that world title. So you could get a matchroom v matchroom kind of matchup there. And then if you go back to 2023, Conor Walker lost to Kane Gardner, who was 15-2 at the time. So you kind of think to yourself, probably after the 2 losses, like, okay, that's probably it for Conor Walker. He's not a massive ticket seller. He's not a massive social media guy. You know, he's probably going to have to, you know, look at more British, European level. And then ever since that, he's kind of gone on a tear, beat Lewis Ritson, Harry Scarf, Liam Taylor, and then a huge win over a probably rising prospect in someone like Pat McCormack, because I know that, you know, Eddie had put a lot of stock behind, you know, the McCormack brothers. So another Team GB guy that loses on this card. So, interesting to see. But, Conor's good to watch. And I like the fact that, like, even in the 12th round, he was still trying to go for the knockout, which is obviously, you know, appeals to the fans. And it looks like he actually took quite a few fans with him over to Monaco. So good on him. And hopefully he gets the Lewis Crocker fight, because it looks like Conor Benn probably going to go after the winner of Barrios and Ryan Garcia. So that frees up that opponent for Lewis Crocker. But if you're Lewis Crocker and you kind of know deep down you're a title holder, you would probably go for the biggest payday. So I would imagine it's probably going to be, if I was him, I'd be like, I'll just find the biggest payday right here, because I don't know if he's really going to hold on to that belt too long.
Well, yeah, I mean, you would think, right? It's what did we talk? Was it last week We talked about the one and only Prince Charles Martin.
Yeah, he sold it. Yeah, it's good for him.
Yeah,
I'm still living off that money.
I mean, yeah. I'm sure he got paid very well from that. That kind of probably made his career right there. But it's almost kind of the same analogy there. For Conor Walker, this is just a side note, I guess, in terms of spelling. So his name is spelled Conah.
Yeah, I'm assuming it must be like an
So
Irish influence.
Is that common? And this is just me asking from. Is that a common spelling in the UK?
No, I haven't seen it spelled that way too much. I don't know whether I'm assuming the way that it is, must be a Irish or maybe even Welsh version of.
Because is it supposed to be technically? Well, is it a play on the at least the name over here, Connor, Conner?
Yeah, I mean that's how I would normally spell it and see it in the UK. I'm assuming it must just be some type of Irish, Welsh.
Well, that's what I assumed. I just wasn't sure. I was just like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So not Conner, but it's Conah. Conor Walker. That's cool. Also, this past Saturday from the Frost Bank Center in San Antonio, Texas, on Amazon Prime pay-per-view, Isaac Pitbull Cruz and Lamont Roach fight to a majority draw decision where the WBC interim super lightweight title was on the line. This was Lamont Roach's second draw this year. He fought to a draw with Gervonta Tank Davis earlier this year, which there's fans that disagreed with the decision because there was a controversial moment where Tank Davis took a knee and they didn't count it as a knockdown and said there was something in his eye, and then he went to his corner and all that. So, but that wasn't counted. But technically, if you would have counted that, it would have been a decision for Lamont Roach instead of a draw, technically. So this fight last week, you picked Roach and I picked Cruz. Looks like we both won because they tied, right? What'd you think about the fight?
I thought it was very close because of the styles.
Yeah,
I thought Roach looked like he'd started to pull away towards the end. I thought Cruz started really, really well. But I think maybe just his, come forward style, a lot of punches kind of thrown. I think he maybe tied himself up maybe towards the end where Roach, I think, finished a lot better, but Cruz started better. Kind of like a fight of two halves, the usual saying that you hear people say. And there really wasn't a lot between them. Roach went down in the third, and then Cruz was docked a point for a kidney punch later on in round 7, I think it was. So I think it would be good to run it back, really, just to get an actual winner out.
That where he was docked a point, that didn't look like an illegal punch to me. It didn't look low to me. Am I wrong? Was I seeing something?
Well, he didn't say it was low. It was in the kidneys. They're saying that he was aiming for the kidneys.
Was it? Okay, because I saw the highlights and I thought they said it was they docked him for going low. I was like, what? So, but I was just kind of glancing. But okay, that makes sense to me. But the third judge had it for Cruz. So do you agree, just based on you watching it, do you agree with the draw, or do you agree with that third judge that it should have been tipped to Pitbull Cruz?
I probably would have gone with Roach.
Really?
I think Roach stole it towards the end.
Even though he was knocked down.
Yeah, I just thought he was the more clean, effective type of work. I thought he connected well. I thought he had a good engine. And I thought he stole it. I thought Cruz kind of tired towards the end and Roach kind of upped it and then, finished better. And I think he probably stole it by a round.
Well, I remember in the post-fight press conference, they both said that they would do a rematch, and I think Cruz even said, he said it in Spanish, but he said something along the lines of, he's like, no, he's like, I won't do it like Tank Davis. He's like, I'll rematch him right away. He said something along those lines. Honestly, I mean, I think they should. Maybe like March.
Just depends, isn't it? Because the PBC, just the cards are so infrequent now.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing, because like I don't know how much longer they have with this Amazon Prime deal, but that is a thing, right? But like, it's also how many marquee fights does PBC have to produce for Amazon Prime? I mean, honestly, like a rematch I think would do good, because people are like, oh, they fought to a draw the first time. Let me watch the second one. So I would think. I mean, they look banged up, but nothing. I don't think I noticed or I read anything about any significant damage. I mean, hopefully they're both okay. They're just a little bit banged up, but I would think that a rematch, maybe March, April? They fight twice both. If they both fight twice next year. They fight in March or April, and then they fight again like October to November or something like that, or to December.
The PBC have such infrequent cards that card had 13 fights.
Because they had to pile them all in.
Yeah, they probably owed so many fighters fights on their contracts. They just had to keep piling the fights on there.
Yeah. Do we know what the reported purses were?
No, I haven't seen that anywhere, actually. It's funny. Normally that pops up, doesn't it, on somewhere, like, Dan Raphael's normally good at those.
I mean, Texas, I think, has a little bit different set of rules than, like, obviously California. California Commission gets a reported number. Even though
I don't know where this came from.
Oh, yeah. Check the source.
So this is just a AI search. Lamont Roach, 2.4. Isaac, 1 million. Not including potential pay-per-view bonuses or any type of bonuses that are due.
I wouldn't necessarily think that there's going to be pay-per-view bonuses for this fight. This is a good fight for the hardcore boxing fan, but I don't think it's going to exceed a threshold for a pay-per-view bonus.
2.4 seems good, doesn't it, for Roach?
No, it does. Yeah, that's very good. That is very good. But I mean, he is coming off like the most significant fight of his career in terms of attention against Davis, and he got a draw out of it. So, and Isaac Cruz arguably gave Tank Davis just as hard of a fight that Lamont Roach did. So I mean, what did you say that both Roach and Cruz gave Davis probably his top two most difficult fights?
100%, yeah.
I mean, I know actually Barrios. I think Barrios actually fought a lot better than people think. Because I don't know if you remember that clip of when Davis fought Barrios. Floyd Mayweather came to the corner of Davis and he got his attention and said, "Hey, you're down on the unofficial card." And he was like, I need you to take care of it in the 10th, 11th, and 12th. Pretty much the championship rounds, Mayweather was telling him like, hey, the unofficial card has you down. It's the unofficial card, but it's kind of telling you something. And then I think Davis ended up knocking him out in the championship rounds or in the later rounds. But I think Barrios was actually fighting pretty decent. But going back to what I asked, do you think Roach and Cruz have given Davis his top two most difficult fights?
100%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, I know Cruz didn't get the decision, and Roach fought to a draw, but I like this fight. I give a ton of respect to both of them, but I give a ton of respect to Lamont Roach as well, because his expectation was that he was going to fight Tank Davis in a rematch. And then Davis signed to fight Jake Paul. And then that obviously didn't pan out. But you got to give credit to Lamont Roach, because he could have just sat out the rest of the year and be like, oh, okay, well, let me wait until next year, maybe the first quarter for Davis. But, he made it known and he agreed, like, oh, no, I'll take on Cruz. And it was a fun fight. But what do you think is the percentage that we see the rematch in the first quarter of next year? So
first quarter, so January to March?
Yeah.
No. 0.
What about by May?
Yeah, I think since they don't have too many cards, I think by May.
April,
like
May?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. If enough people call for it, if the pay-per-view numbers were decent, then I think we'll... And then there's nowhere really for them else to go at the minute.
Would they go back to Texas again?
Yeah, I mean, they don't seem to come to New York and California much anymore.
Well, there's not a lot of fights that happen here. And if they do happen here, they happen on tribal land, on casinos.
Teofimo Lopez has got Shakur, so that kind of messes up that. Dalton Smith is obviously going to be fighting Matias, so they may as well run it back.
No, yeah, I think they will, and I'm sure PBC is going to be like, hey, yeah, we can capitalize on this fight again. They'll probably do it in Texas again.
Keyshawn Davis is top rank.
Yeah,
I'm sure they'll just leave him on the shelf because he's good.
Right.
So they may as well run it back. Really looking at that, I think we both think they deserve it, and then looking at the division, it makes sense.
Yeah, because like you said, Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson, they've already announced their upcoming fight. Ryan Garcia and Barrios. Ryan Garcia and Barrios have already. Well, Garcia's already posted about that he's they're going to fight that, even though it's not officially announced. So we'll see if he jumped ahead of the announcement there or not, if there is any announcement. Yeah, I could see that. At the latest May, I would say April is like the sweet spot, but I could see them put it in May because Cruz, Cinco de Mayo, they might try to capitalize on the date. We already know that the plan, at least right now, tentative plan is to have David Benavidez and Zurdo Ramirez in May. I'm assuming that's going to be a DAZN card too, because Ramirez has a cruiserweight championship. Assuming he wins this fight, I think it's in January. Fights next month, Zurdo.
January the 16th,
right?
The one I'm doing, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say by May you see the rematch between Roach and Pitbull Cruz. Roach just can't catch a break, huh? Just fighting to these draws. I mean,
yeah, he's done it the hard way as well. Obviously,
no, he has. He's worked hard.
Worked hard. Proven completely wrong. I thought.
Well, yeah, remember how he said you were. He's like, I don't think he really has it, and you told that to one of his team members, Robert Diaz, former VP at Golden Boy, and Lamont Roach responded to us, man. He responded.
Yeah.
Well, he's proved you wrong.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I mean, I guess even though he's fought to a draw twice in a row, it's better than 2 losses.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, I think he won both.
Yeah. Who do you I wonder what the record is. What do you think the record of for a fighter, a professional fighter, of having the most draws are? Like draw decisions.
Man, you got to think that it had to be as low as 2, maybe 3.
You
More
think
than
so?
that, it's kind of crazy.
I mean, there has to be. There has to be somebody who has at least like. See, I want to say 5 just to kind of stay safe, but I feel like 5's too low. I mean, what if there's like, oh, this person has 10 draw decisions? Like, is there a chance somebody can be in double digits? I mean, obviously there's a chance, but is it realistic?
Unofficially 8.
8, okay. And
According
who is
to a
that?
thread on a boxing forum, Jim Barry, Joe Bernstein, and Kid Young reportedly had ended 8 straight bouts as a draw.
That's crazy. So that's consecutive. Do we know, like, it doesn't have to be consecutively, but do we know how, like, in the history of the sport, which fighter has had the most decisions that led to a draw? Like, let's just say they fought 50 times and they had 9 draw decisions.
Same thing. Unofficially, 51
51 what?
draws.
For one fighter?
Yeah, in 316 contests.
Who is that?
Sandy McEwen.
What years were those? Does it say? And when you say 300,
you have 316 fights, 51 draws.
do you think that's including amateur and pro, or you think that's all pro fights?
I'm assuming it's going to be something like the early 90s, like 1900s, you know?
Well, that's what I'm saying, because there's no way they had 300 pro fights, even back then. I mean, maybe there is, now that I think about it.
1930s.
300 pro fights?
According to like this forum.
Yeah. If it's to be trusted, yeah.
Right.
Huh. That's insane. 51 decisions that led to a draw. But you fight supposedly 300 times.
That's insane.
That's crazy. That is nuts. So who do you take in the potential rematch then? If it happens by May of 2026?
Lamont Roach again.
Lamont Roach?
I think
so nothing from this first fight changed that, like, okay, I'd probably switch to Cruz, no?
No, and if anything, I think Roach will probably have learned something. He'll understand Cruz a little bit better. And I think he'll be able to solve the puzzle.
There's a part of me, it's actually a pretty significant part. Now, I think these guys are going to be like, I don't want to say like Barrera Morales or, Pacquiao Marquez, but there's a thought that's crossing my mind right now that thinks these guys are going to be like each other's Barrera Morales, Pacquiao Marquez. Like their style is going to be like kind of made for each other, where every time they fight, it's like, is it going to be a draw? Is it going to be a split decision? Like how, like it's going to be difficult to pick every single time because their styles are made for each other, and they just put it all on the line against each other. I don't know. I'm just guessing here, but I just have a feeling that both of these guys, every time they fight, I think we see them fight at least 3 times in their careers. Maybe 4. But at least 3. I mean, Pacquiao Marquez fought, was it 4 times?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just a hunch that I have, but I think these guys are on that pathway. Because, I mean, think about it. Whoever wins the next fight, especially if it's close, they might not fight a third fight right away, but they would fight a third fight eventually. I think this is one of those rivalries here. I think it is. Also on the card, Oshaki Foster, 24-3, gets the 12-round unanimous decision win over Stephen Fulton. This was a good fight too. For the WBC interim lightweight title. So before I get a reaction, we kind of break down this fight. What happened in this fight that led the WBC to sanction this for the interim lightweight title?
You're asking me?
I'm asking you.
Okay, well,
I know what happened, but I want you to explain it to our
Fulton
listeners.
Came in, I think, was it 2 pounds overweight? And then, according to Mauricio Suleiman, the PBC campaigned for them to put on the interim world title for them to fight for. So it's kind of funny. Obviously, Fulton's gone up 2 weight divisions in the past few months and still didn't manage to make weight. So amazing. And then obviously, the WBC still get, 3% of the pie because their title's still on the line. So what a week.
We'll get further into that topic later, obviously, but I mean, I feel like I've asked this question several times throughout our podcast episode history here, but I'm going to ask it again. Are we genuinely and honestly surprised about this? Are we?
No. I think if you're not as much of a boxing nerd as us, then some of the stuff would go under the radar. Them coming out, allowing certain fighters to fight when they've tested positive, giving Conor Benn an excuse. And I tell you what I can't stand is they're a sanctioning body, but then they'll come out and they'll say, oh no, Subriel Matias is okay to fight because it was contamination. I'm like, you're not the fucking New York State Athletic Commission. What do you mean he's okay to fight? He's okay to fight for your belt. But you're saying it like you're the actual body that's sanctioning the entire fight, the entire card. Like, stuff like that just annoys me because I'm like, okay, you should come out and say, if the fight goes ahead, we're allowing the WBC belts to be on the line. But they don't word it like that. It's like, oh, no, he's fine. He can fight.
Yeah.
No, you're not in charge. So stuff like that kind of like... Because I can't think the amount of times that they just allowed it. Munguia, what do you call him? Oscar Valdez, Canelo, Conor Benn, Alicia Baumgardner. Like the amount of people that they've just allowed and given them, it's contamination, or it's under the, Subriel Matias, or it's actually underneath the limit that's allowed by the New York State Athletic Commission. So he's fine. He's allowed to fight. You're like, yeah, but it shouldn't be in his body anyway.
Right. No, you're right. I mean, like, how come one, like all those examples you just cited, I mean, there's a chance that obviously all of them, it could have been accidents. I mean, who knows? But realistically, we know that stuff happens, not just in boxing, in sports. We had the steroid era for baseball like 25 years ago. Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds, all those guys were on, they all got caught. But I mean, it comes back to, like you said, like the fees. These sanctioning bodies, WBC obviously is the one we're talking about here, but all of them too. But the WBC, like, they depend on these fees from these championship fights when they're associated with these fights. And obviously with these fighters, the more popular they are, the bigger their payday is going to be. So that means that the fee is going to produce more for them. I mean, it's a business, right? Like, I
shouldn't be for them. They're supposed to be non-profit.
Well, yeah.
We know they're not, but I'm just saying, like this.
Well, yeah. I mean, they do promote, like, they do promote things that they do in the communities and stuff like that. I mean,
but
they do put.
I was going to say the wrong word then, but it's not their money. That's like me saying to you, okay, Danny, you're going to fight for my belt, and using Crawford for an example, but I'll use you. Okay, you owe me $300,000 from your purse to the WBC. 75% of that is going to be before the belts and whatever else that we need to pay for. But $225,000 of that is going to go to the WBC charity. If I was Crawford, I'd be like, well, I'll keep the $225,000. If that's not going to pay for the belt and the other stuff, surely it's up to me whether that $225,000 of my money from my purse goes to charity. And then Mauricio Summerman goes around, which is cool. Like, he gives it to like retired fighters that need it and all that. But it's not his money. Like, if he was just like had his own business and he decided that the money that he's earned from his business goes to charity, that's fine. But he's taking it from this fighter, that fighter, that fighter, that fighter, then handing it out. So it's not like, it's like Robin Hood. You're stealing from them and giving it to someone else. Like, that's not how it should be. Like, it's not. If he raised that money in other ways, selling T-shirts, selling memorabilia, stuff like that, that's fine. But surely that's up to Crawford. That's up to Canelo. That's up to whoever else, if they wanted to give $225,000 of their purse to a charity. If it's only takes $75,000 to cover the costs of the belt and whatever else, then just pay the $75,000.
Right. No, right. I mean, yeah. I think this kind of contributes to the whole back and forth conversation of, you know, the TKO Boxing League by Dana White and, you know, Endeavor coming into boxing and wanting to create their own titles. I mean, you know, there's people on one side like, oh, we don't want this happening. We don't want like having a league like UFC and, you know, monopolizing. But then it's like, okay, well then if you don't, then okay, you have these sanctioning bodies who they're controlling the titles, which has been for decades. Obviously, the WBC, I believe, is the oldest sanctioning body. Mm-hmm. But for decades, you know, what do you suggest? You know, like what? I mean, like what do you suggest? Even if somebody didn't agree, hypothetically speaking, doesn't agree with the boxing league. And for example, PBC wanted to start a boxing league when they started PBC like 10 years ago. Like they wanted to start a boxing league. Like they signed all these fighters. They took away all these fighters from Golden Boy. But you know, just for a while they did have the best roster of fighters. But in the long run, it wasn't a sustainable model business wise. But assuming somebody doesn't like the prospect of having these sanctioning body titles go away and then TKO, these boxing leagues having their own titles like UFC titles, what could you do to alleviate these changes for these sanctioning bodies? You know, like what could you do? You know, these sanctioning bodies aren't government like titles. Like they're not like backed by like these commissions, like the California State Athletic Commission, the New York Commission, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, like where you would think you would have the confidence in government backed commissions like that. Like, oh, okay, well, they don't have, you know, it's a public entity. So it's like, oh, okay, there shouldn't be any issues there, but these are private companies. Yeah. You said they're like nonprofits, like the WBC, but they are still private entities. So, I mean, what changes really could be done? You know, like they've been there for decades. I don't know what else you could do.
I think it's too far down now. Like if you told Suleiman, like, hey, you need to limit your percentage to 100,000 is the most that you can take from a fighter. To all of you guys, IBF, WBA, WBO, like surely they'll obviously earn a lot less money even though they're non-profit. But does the WBC need to do a fancy-ass convention every year in some fancy place that costs an untold amount of money? Like, probably not. Look at the Ring magazine is the most coveted belt by all the fighters. Like Crawford said the other day, Tyson Fury said it. Multiple fighters have said it. It costs zero.
Right.
They don't have a convention every year in somewhere fancy, 5-star hotel, having people campaigned for who they should fight. But yet it's the best one.
Right.
I've no idea how they manage to pay for the belts all the time and the stuff that they do, but they do, and it's still the best one.
I mean, they're probably going to have to start charging the actual promoters. It's like, hey, like, yeah, you know, the fight's going to be for our title, but you know, you guys have to pay the fee. You know, like, because when they sign these contracts, especially these fight contracts, especially when it's a big fight, there's no way that there's not language in those contracts that includes, like, you know, this fighter and this fighter will fight on this date at this location, or a location to be determined for the WBC lightweight world title at 140 pounds. Like, those titles are mentioned in that contract. Like, there's no way they're not, unless like some of them are just more generalized in terms of saying for a world title fight, which they could. But I'm entirely sure that there's contracts out there that have detailed language about the specific title that's going to be on the line when the fight is signed. And it's like, you know, do these sanctioning bodies have to, like, you know, what are they, like political lobbyists? You know, lobbyists they act on behalf of clients, sometimes big corporations and companies, to try to affect legislation, at least here in the United States. I mean, in the UK too, you know, all over the world. But you know, would these sanctioning bodies have to talk to these promoters and, you know, these boxing managers and say, hey, like, you guys have to put language, like, we want language in these contracts that say this fee will be paid, this fee of 0.3% or 0.6% or whatever is agreed upon and paid for based on the overall purse of fighter A and fighter B. I mean, I don't know, because, like, I'm trying to think, and I can't think of any of an instance, but I don't think there's ever been a time, and I could be wrong. I'm just trying to think of the top of my head, but I don't think there's ever been a time where a sanctioning body sued a fighter. I mean, I'm sure there has.
I mean, I can't. Other way
I know fighters have sued sanctioning bodies.
Well, there was a famous one where the guy was granted $31 million from the WBC.
I remember. Yeah,
was going to go out. It was going to be bankrupt, and then eventually they spoke to the fighter Giuseppe. I can't remember his last name now, but essentially he eventually said that, like, okay, I don't know whether they settled, like, out of court or he didn't take the full amount, and then the WBC is still here. Right.
I don't know. We kind of went on a whole rabbit hole. We didn't, you know, right there, you know. But we've talked. We're going to keep talking about sanctioning bodies and titles, and then obviously the future with TKO and that entire landscape. Because, you know, we've done it before, and we're going to keep doing it because that's just the nature of how boxing works. But
it would be interesting if we could get, like, a promoter on, like a big name promoter, but we could say to them, Danny and Mike fight, and it's just a normal fight, non-title fight. Their purse would be Danny and Mike fight for a world title.
Right.
How much does that normally increase the purse? And is that significant enough to give someone like the WBC 100,000, 200,000, 300,000? You know?
I mean, obviously, well, we're going to talk about it later, but obviously Crawford's was high because his purse was so high. Right. Obviously, the bigger the number, mathematically, the higher the fee is going to end up being. So, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But
did you see that they said that he owes the money But he also owes money from the fight with Madrimov, right?
Yeah. So he hasn't paid
WBC
twice.
But the WBC title wasn't part of that fight. The WBO,
The WBO was.
titles were on that fight.
Was there like an interim or something on the line?
I don't know whether he's saying that they were getting ranking points or something because there wasn't a WBC belt.
Because that fight was at 154, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Maybe was it a ranking thing?
I'm guessing it must have been some type of like, hey, like you're going to get ranking points and you need to give us a percentage or something because
that's crazy if it's for like ranking like that. That's nuts.
But there was no belt on the line, no WBC belt on the line. I'd love for someone to get with Mauricio and ask him like, how on earth can you charge for that?
That is an interesting question.
Yeah.
That's a very thought-provoking question, yeah. That's something that I like to... Yeah, Mauricio Sulaiman, WBC, if you're listening, that is a very interesting question. Because it was not, right? It was a WBO title that was on the line between Crawford and Madrimov at 154 here in LA.
WBA super welterweight title.
Or BA, not BO.
I'm just checking. That's the title when you Google it that comes up. I thought there was a WBO title on there as well, but maybe it's just WBA.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, that is strange. Well, that's just how boxing works. What do you think about Foster's win? Unanimous decision win over Stephen Fulton. Like I said, we went down a rabbit hole with this whole title thing and the missed weight and all this stuff. But what do you think about Foster beating Fulton here?
I thought it was a good win. I thought he beat him quite easily, to be honest with you. Did I pick Fulton?
I think you did.
I think I did. But then when I watched the fight, especially when it moved up another weight, I was like, oh my God, like Fulton struggled to really put a dent in somebody in the lower weight. So moving up 2 weights and fighting Oshaki, like, yeah, it was a bad pick by me. And I thought Oshaki looked really, really good. Being someone as skillful as Fulton, I thought Oshaki looked really good. And it's going to be obviously a new weight division for him, another world title. So, I wonder if he's going to stay there, go back down. But he's, he's another one I would say maybe like getting better the older he gets and kind of the question you said earlier, like later in his career, because he did have those losses earlier in his career. But I know him and Shakur got into it afterwards, but I very much doubt Shakur's going to come back down.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think he's going to just keep conquering different weight divisions, and he has the big fight with Teofimo, which we're going to touch on later.
Especially if he beats Teofimo, he's definitely not going back down. Fulton, Fulton... His first loss was against the Monster, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And now second loss is against Foster. So 2 losses, but against pretty good fighters. So that, can't be too affected by that. 23-2. He'll still be around. It'll work out. Also on the card, Jesus Ramos Jr., 24-1, gets the 12-round unanimous decision win over Shane Mosley Jr., who gets the 5th loss of his career. This was for the WBC interim middleweight title. I like Ramos, man. I think he could fight. Mosley Jr., you got to give it to him too, because he's kind of carved out a pretty decent career so far and getting some pretty significant fights under his belt. What do you think?
Yeah, he's a strange one because if you look back at his career, 2021 loses to Jason Quigley, comes back and gets that majority decision win over Gabe Rosado, then fights an unknown in Lozano, then Demetrius Ballard, Joshua Conley, has that disputed win over Daniel Jacobs, and then goes on for a WBC interim title shot against Jesus Ramos Jr. So yeah, like you say, like strange path of fighters to get your way to the WBC interim, but it worked for him. It worked for him. He got there. Not super active. 1 fight in 24, 1 fight in 25. But I suppose sometimes if you're sitting out when waiting, it works for you. Because it's worked for him. Obviously with Golden Boy for a period of time. Obviously, I'm assuming now must be with PBC. But yeah, didn't think he was going to win it, but, good on him for, actually getting to the show, fighting for a WBC interim world title. And obviously big shoes to fill from his father. But, he got a shot, came out second best.
And also on the card, which could be a potential opponent for Ramos now, Erislandy Lara gets the 12-round unanimous decision win as well over Johan Gonzalez, 36-5 for the WBA middleweight championship. Gonzalez was actually a late replacement, but Lara obviously pulled out the win there. I'm assuming that's sometime next year, right? Even though Lara's, it's on the older side, but he's still there. He obviously he's a middleweight championship of the world, or middleweight champion of the world. I mean, that seems like next year it's going to be Ramos versus Lara, right? Seems like that's what PBC is building towards. I would assume that's next.
Yeah, you would imagine so. I mean, there was a lot of boos during that fight. Lara just...
Well, I mean, Lara's style's never been that pleasing, right?
Yeah, he's never had that pleasing style. 42 years old, so the output's even less than it was before. It's kind of effective because he does keep on winning in this later part of his career, but he's not someone where you're going to rush home to be like, hey, Erislandy Lara's on. Let's rush back and, watch the fight. So, I think if they can, knowing PBC, if he can drop that title to another PBC fighter, I think they'll try to make it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think that's usually how it works. Not just for PBC, but for a lot of promoters, Top Rank, Golden Boy, You love the in-house fights because it's like, oh, okay, well, it's going to stay with us anyways. That's the nature of the business. Fight previews this upcoming Saturday, the 13th of December from the Stockton Arena in Stockton, California on DAZN. Diego Pacheco, 24-0, goes up against Kevin Lele Sajo. I hope I said that right. Also undefeated, 26-0 for the WBC Silver and WBO International Super Middleweight titles. What do you think about this fight? I don't know too much about Kevin Sajo. I don't know how to say it. I hope I said that right. But he's undefeated too, 26-0.
Yeah, he's fought a couple of British fighters. He fought Jack Cullen and... Oh, man, who was the other one he fought? Name forgets me. I can't remember it right now, but I think Diego Pacheco, he'll be too big, too strong, too explosive. I think he'll be a good name on his resume. I think Pacheco probably takes him out late, and I'm still surprised with the matching by Matchroom so far with Pacheco. He's been with them. I'm pretty sure he's been with them his entire career since he turned professional.
It's been a while, yeah.
But it's like I don't know whether he's trying to wait for your Canelos and some of those guys to retire.
I think they are. Yeah.
It seems like it so far, but I'd love to have seen him fight Berlanga. I know Berlanga just lost recently to...
Pacheco was open to that fight. I think he wanted that fight.
Yeah, and I don't know whether Berlanga didn't want it, whether Matchroom were like, hey, not yet. We still want to go, kind of slow with him and his momentum. But
Berlanga got that Canelo payday, so after that, he's like, I can slow down.
And then he got iced out by Hamza Shiraz.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it seems like they're kind of going at a snail's pace. I'd love to see him kind of let off the leash a little bit, and especially with Canelo's probably lost those Mexican dates of Cinco de Mayo, and then obviously September Independence.
Yeah.
If Benavidez is going to jump in it, you could have had Diego Pacheco maybe jump in it. You're also going to have the UFC try to jump on those spots and get those as well. So,
right.
I mean, he's a good fighter. He's explosive, gets a lot of good knockouts, and you never really hear him doing anything wrong. He's pretty good with the media. You can kind of one of those guys that you can have your kids look up to because he doesn't seem to be out there partying, drinking, swearing, that type of stuff.
Also on the card, Gabriel Flores Jr., 27-2, goes up against Joe Cordina, 18-1, for the WBO International Lightweight title. Flores, a Stockton native, so he's going to be fighting in front of his hometown crowd there. This is an interesting fight. Flores was a top-rank fighter, right? Because Alpregas signed him.
Youngest signing of all time at that time.
At that time, yeah. He was on the show too. He was on a past episode here. I give the edge to Cordina here. I think Cordina is gonna have a pretty easy time winning here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, regular listeners to the show, but I've never rated Flores from when he turned pro. I think he's just got no power. Still has a very amateurish style. I think Cordina, unless Matchroom know that he's over the hill and they're putting him out to pasture, I think Cordina should make easy work of it. I think Cordina may get in there in a couple of rounds and then kind of realize he's like, wow, like this guy can't punch his way out of a wet paper bag. Yeah. And then I think Cordina might just jump on him and hopefully take him out. Because from the last showing, I don't think Cordina's over the hill and he's past it.
I don't think so either.
Times caught up with him rather quickly. I think Cordina should take him out and, work his way back up the rankings to hopefully another world title shot.
And then rounding off the card, Sky Nicholson, 14-1, goes up against Julian Luna Avila, 28-4-1 for the WBC interim super bantamweight title. And also Ernesto Mercado, 17-0, goes up against Antonio Moran, 31-7-1 for the WBO international super lightweight title. A lot of titles, a lot of regional titles or secondary titles popping up here, huh?
Yeah, well, we want Mercado to win that so we can get the Kane Sandoval Northern California,
that's right.
Northern California, Southern California showdown that we spoke about with Kane.
That's right, yeah. When Sandoval was on earlier this year, we did ask him about Mercado, and he said, he's paying attention. He's like, oh, yeah, people are saying that. So that is true. Mercado wins. Kind of still keeps that pathway alive, right?
Hopefully, and I think it'll be a good fight. They're both very come-forward, fan-friendly fights. So then you've got the Northern California, Southern California kind of rivalry thrown in there as well. They fought as amateurs. So, man, like, I think you've got many reasons to make it. So, let's hope they do.
And then we kind of touched on it earlier, at least in terms of like the sanctioning body fees and stuff like that. But obviously, Terence Crawford chose not to pay the sanctioning fee to WBC. And like you said, that I think the WBC or Mauricio Suleiman, the president of the WBC, had said that, or there was a report that Crawford also didn't pay the Madrimov fee, but that fight didn't have any WBC associations. It was WBA. So that's something that's kind of confusing there. Errol Spence had criticized or had provided his insight into the Crawford and WBC situation. He was at the fights for Pitbull, Cruz, and Lamont, Roach in San Antonio, Texas this past weekend. And some reporters had asked Errol Spence about the Terence Crawford and WBC situation. Spence did say that he kind of wished that Crawford had said something 2 years ago during their fight, because prior to the fight, obviously they had press conferences and all that. And there is a clip too, because I saw it. Spence had said, had kind of shed light on, the fees, where's the money going to when they pay the fees to these sanctioning bodies and all that. So he aired out his concerns. And Spence said this past Saturday that he wishes that Crawford probably could have said something then, but he didn't. But now that he's in a comfortable position essentially to say something and fight back, he's saying something. So, I mean, what's your take on the whole Crawford WBC situation? I know we kind of talked about it earlier, but what do you think?
I mean, I get it. You see it. I'm sure you see it in your work. You may have, say you vent something in a meeting and everyone agrees with you, but they don't want to say anything because they know promotion-wise,
right?
They don't want to back you up. But as soon as you leave and you get outside into the corridor, they're like, hey, Danny, I'm so glad you said that. You're like, oh, cheers, bro. And I appreciate you speaking up for me in the middle of the meeting.
Should have said something dirt.
Which is similar to what Crawford did. And I get it. But then you also, you get both sides of it. I get what Spence is saying, but at the same time, Crawford wasn't on that pedestal till after he beat Spence. Yeah, he's got that type of money where now he can do and say what he wants. So,
yeah,
I get it. I get why he's waited until now. He's got the biggest payday of his career, one of the biggest paydays of all time, if you from what people say. So I get why he's decided to do that, because really he doesn't need the belts anymore.
Do you think Spence, at least by the time that him and Crawford fought, do you think Spence had made more money in his career up until that point?
That's good. That's a good question, actually, because I know PBC do pay well, but then when you listen to what Bob Arum was saying, like Crawford was getting paid more than I expected. I think he's always probably been a hard guy to work with in terms of like, I ain't fighting unless you pay me X amount. And Bob Arum
maybe, but it was also their way to try to keep him on their side, because all the welterweights were on the PBC side, and they knew like, okay, if Crawford could try to make what Ryan Garcia did, and make a situation to affect his contract status, or when his contract is up, he could leave and go to PBC and be with all the welterweights. And I think Top Rank and ESPN were just like, well, we have to pay him some type of comparable purse to that other side if we want him to stay.
Do you know what? I think probably not, actually. PBC do pay well, and then Spence had some big PBC v PBC fights. So I think Spence was probably ahead of him.
I would guess.
Yeah.
I mean, Crawford was still making very good money, but...
Yeah, we've said it before, fighting nobody's really.
He's never left Nebraska, too, and the cost of living in Nebraska as compared to, for example, here in California is night and day. So...
Yeah, he must be living good out there.
Yeah, he must be living on top of the world over there. When you compare it to like the more expensive states, New York, even Texas to an extent, but California, and all that. So
he's going to need it though with all those kids.
Yeah, he has a big family. He has a big family, but yeah, I mean, it's just a revolving door, right? This happens every couple of years. These big fighters who end up like making money and they become stars. Eventually, they're just like, hey, I don't want to pay this fee, because their profile ends up being bigger than the sport and bigger than the sanctioning bodies and the world titles.
Cotto, right, was the previous.
Yeah. Cotto did it before Canelo. And I think Mayweather did it before Cotto, kind of, aired out his grievances.
Who was it? They tried to push him into fighting Lennox Lewis, Sonny Liston? Who was it?
No.
The belt in the trash.
It was oh God, I just saw that video like a couple weeks ago too. Yeah, he puts it. I think he's wearing a suit and he puts it in the trash. He puts it. It's a heavyweight, though. It is a heavyweight.
Yeah, it was a heavyweight because they tried to force him to fight Lennox Lewis, right?
Riddick Bowe?
Yeah, I think it was Bowe, yeah.
Riddick Bowe? Is it?
No, I think you're right. Yes, Riddick Bowe.
Riddick Bowe. That's what I'm saying. It's a revolving door. So this happens all the time, right? Like, every so often, there's fighters who air out their grievances and, then the sport just resets. But right now, this could be... The thing with the Crawford thing is that, how we talk about sometimes we measure the sport's reach in terms of, okay, how popular or how mainstream is a fight or an event or a piece of news. I had casual fans, and even some less than casual fans, more than 3 people, separate people, contact me and ask me about the Crawford WBC situation. And the first thing that they were pretty much saying, oh, hey, like they stripped Terence Crawford. Why not? Like, he didn't want to pay, or what happened? Like, so that news obviously reached the mainstream of sports fans. So, I mean, that's, I was like, oh, this is it. I was like, that's interesting, But, Crawford's coming off the Canelo Netflix profile. He was on the Forbes magazine cover, I believe, recently. So I think a lot of mainstream or more popular social media accounts for sports or even just regular content creators posted about this, so it reached their audiences. And obviously there's people who have never seen news like this, like, what? They took his belt away? What? He just won it. What happened? Like, to people, when they read that, you read that headline, they're like, oh, what the heck? Like, that's no fair. He is a champion. He beat the champion. He beat Canelo. We know that. We know that, right? Just because he didn't want to pay the fee. I mean, like I said, it's a revolving door with that situation. But he's still the champion. Like, we know, like, he beat Canelo. But now he's in a position, like Spence says, where he can air out his grievances because he's made so much money and his profile is beyond the sport. Power, right? It's essentially power. MVP Promotions, Jake Paul, Most Valuable Promotions, has signed WBC Women's Lightweight Champion Sweet Caroline DuBois, and the undefeated Brit will make her promotional debut as part of the Jake Paul Anthony Joshua undercard on December 19th in Miami. I mean, it's not surprising, right? Jake Paul is trying to, has been building a female roster at MVP. It's a pretty good signing, and especially for UK. If he's going to try to get UK fans, I think it's pretty good. She's got the Dubois name. I think it works.
Just another knife into boxer. Lost their most popular, stylish male in Ben Whittaker, and then lost probably their best female in terms of skill in the world champion in Caroline DuBois. So I'd love to get Jake Paul or Nikisa on here and just be like, can you give me the business plan, like having all these female fighters when we know that most people don't watch female fights. Yeah,
ratings wise, I mean, it's true. Like, the ratings aren't strong for females, but the outlier, at least recently, is Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. They were on Netflix, but that was huge. They were promoted everywhere. Even Eddie Hearn of Matchroom had said, like, once Jake Paul got involved, then we were able to get that fight across the line because we couldn't pay what they wanted, but when Jake Paul got involved, then we could pay what they wanted because Jake Paul's reach, So,
I mean, a lot of I think I'm thinking of the right one, but when they put those viewing figures out, most of them were tuning in for the Jake Paul Mike Tyson.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because I know they used to be like, oh my god, the most watched female fight of all time. Like, they've turned it on, ready for the main event.
Right.
And the main event is Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. Like, if they had the card itself and it was just that, and it was mostly female fights, the viewing figures wouldn't be anywhere near that.
No, of course. No, I think we know that. But, if they were on Netflix.
Don't. That's the thing. Some people don't. They go on like, oh, it's this and that, and, female fights. And I'm like, dude, it's not that popular. Like, it just isn't. There's no knockdowns.
I do wonder if Jake Paul kind of put that in the contract with Netflix and said, hey, this is going to be our co-main event between these two female fighters, but the plan is to give them their own headlining fight in a rematch. Like, I wonder if because Netflix saw how popular the fight got, because it was a co-main and, people turned on the TV, like, oh, it's going to start soon. And they saw the female fight, like, oh, this is fun. And it was entertaining. And then Netflix got sold, like, hey, a lot of people are talking about these female fighters, Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. So we'll give them their own headlining card. Or I wonder if it was already a part of the contract. Like, that's what I'm interested in know.
I think it's because you can do Jake Paul versus Joshua, say, right? That's coming up. 90% of the money is going to go to them, but they can follow it with an undercard of female world title fights,
right?
For about $100,000 each, because you couldn't do that with males,
right?
Lamont Roach isn't the most popular person in the world. 2.4 million,
reportedly.
I mean, say 3.4.
That's pretty high.
Him and Isaac Cruz combined, that's 3.4 million. Whereas Carissa Shields just posted the other day, and I sent it to you. She fought Christina Hammer, was it?
For like 100,000?
Yeah, 100,000 or 150,000 for a world title fight in her ninth fight, I think she said on the tweet.
Yeah.
So he can take 90% of the money, surround himself with well-known female fighters fighting for legit world championships, but they're getting like $100,000, $150,000 each. Minus, I know people are going to be shouting at the screen, going, "What about Amanda Serrano? She's an anomaly. Jake Paul used her and got her 7 figures and what have you." But
Jake Paul was,
they're not earning 7 figures. Maybe Alicia Bumgarner because she kind of crossed over. But
I mean, it is difficult.
Maybe that's why he surrounds himself with those, because it's cheaper than having surrounded himself with world championship males, because the card would be.
Well, I mean, it is. Yeah, the business decisions do have to come into effect, right? Into factors. I mean, they have to.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way, especially approaching somebody like Netflix. Like, Netflix is going to be like, well, is it going to make us money? Like, they're not where they're at because, they've made non-financially viable decisions. I'm sure they took risks where it didn't pan out, but obviously overall, their positioning shows that they made enough successful risks and decisions to lead to where they're at. So, yeah, I mean, business always factors in. And you're right. There's no way. I mean, there's no way. Like, yeah, you can still do what you have to do, but at the end of the day, like, that's why TKO, the boxing league, which we can transition to that, is they're coming up with their first announced official event for TKO on January 23rd of the new year, 2026. So that will be on Paramount Plus. I'm interested to see what they put on there in terms of their fights. How they're going to structure it. I'm assuming they're going to try to structure it literally like how UFC does. So, yeah, they're going to get a lot of boxing people, especially watching that. And they're going to promote it. UFC is going to promote it. Dana White's going to promote it. They're going to push it.
It's going to be interesting all around. Who fights who? Where? Is it going to be in Vegas? Is it going to be at the UFC Apex? What are they going to use for the commentator? Like, who's that going to be? Obviously, they're not going to use Joe Rogan. So it's going to be who are they going to use for that part of it? And you would expect the first one to be all glitz and glamour, because you only get one first impression. If me and you turn it on and we're like, this is absolutely trash. Some people aren't going to tune back in. Me and you, Mike, because we're boxing nerds.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, yeah, that January 23rd is a big day for boxing, especially for TKO and Zuffa, because everybody's going to be watching.
It's a Friday.
Is it?
Yeah, it's the day before they do the UFC event. So Friday night fights.
Oh, they want to... Wait, where's the UFC event at?
I think it's actually in Australia.
Huh. That's interesting.
They're just going to Friday boxing, Saturday.
But you think they're going to do the TKO show in Australia?
Nah, I think they'll do it here, but they're just trying to dominate the weekend,
That is interesting, though, because, like, Dana White, like, because there's obviously people involved with UFC who are involved with the Zuffa Boxing. I mean, it could happen, but do you think Dana White's going to be at the Zuffa show and then jump on a plane and fly all the way to Australia?
I'm going to pull it up now. I'm pretty sure it's Australia, because I think it's the...
Because don't they usually try to pair them in, like, the same area?
Yeah, when they do, like, the slap fighting and stuff like that.
Right.
Oh, no, take that back. Sorry. I'm a week off. That one is in Vegas. The week after is in Australia.
Oh, okay.
My bad.
Yeah, because I was like, that's very interesting if that's what they're doing, but I didn't. So yeah, they can put all the energy into that show, and then they would fly out to Australia like 2 days later. Yeah, they're gonna have a lot of eyeballs on it, and we'll see how it turns out. So, and then you also mentioned this earlier. We touched on it, but Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson is official. They're going to be fighting at the end of January in 2026, January 31st at Madison Square Garden. This is actually Madison Square Garden, the full arena, right?
Yeah, so they said today. Yeah.
That's interesting because that it's what is it, like 20,000? 18,000? Yeah. Huh. Yeah. That's interesting. You think they sell it out?
I mean, Teo hasn't sold before in his recent fights. Shakur, this is I don't know, dude. Straight after Christmas, like
this is interesting though. This is interesting. I mean, Madison Square Garden, huh?
I would go with, unless the price of the tickets is low, I want to go with no.
I would say at least 12,000.
And I think they'll probably give a load away because it's just
it'll look good. They'll fill it out. They'll fill it out, but it's also going to depend. Like, are they all going to be bought? Not all of them, but like, are they going to sell what they want? Yeah, that's interesting. That is very interesting. So we'll see.
That's a ring show, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
I wonder who they're going to be used as like the actual, promoter, like Matchroom or Queensbury or Top Rank, maybe.
I would say probably. I would say Matchroom is probably going to be the lead promoter in association with Top Rank. I would think, but who knows? But once again, guys, we appreciate you guys listening to this week's episode of the Last Round Boxing Podcast. Thank you again for joining us. And before we sign off, once again for the week, Mike, go ahead and let them know where they can find us and follow us.
At the Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter. And be sure to join us next week. We'll be previewing the biggest name in pro boxing, Jake Paul against Anthony Joshua. And then the week after that, the hardest boxing quiz in the world. Christmas
it's coming.
Quiz.
It is coming for sure. So for my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is the Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is the Last Round Podcast.